You are listening to Small Business Straight Talk with your host, Amber De La Garza. Amber is a sought-after coach, trainer, speaker, and writer who gives small business owners the straight talk on productivity, time management, business systems, leading your teams, strategic decision-making, and mindset. No BS, fluff, or overused jargon. Just actionable strategies to get results and succeed in business. And here is your host, Amber De La Garza, the productivity specialist.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to the Small Business Straight Talk podcast. Today is episode 417, Decision Making, Part 1, The Hidden Costs of Delay. If you're a small business owner who wants to learn effective business strategies, improve time management, and elevate productivity to maximize profits, reduce stress, and make time for what matters most, then you're in the right place, and I'm so glad you've joined me. Does making decisions stress you out? Do you find yourself drained before you ever even get to the important decisions? Are you stuck in a loop of overthinking, second-guessing, or avoiding it altogether? If decision-making feels harder than it should, it's costing you more than you think, and it's not just in time. Today, we're going to talk about what's really going on and why just decide already has never helped anyone. Before we jump in, though, I want to invite you to take my Next Level Business Owner quiz. What is more productive than taking a short 3-minute quiz to find out what's most holding you back from getting personalized playlists of specific episodes that have strategies and actionables you can implement immediately to get you unstuck and to the next level? Take 3 short minutes and head on over to amberdelagarza.com/quiz. Again, that's amberdelagarza.com/quiz. And now let's get to the straight talk. So I have a question. How long have you been sitting on that decision? You know the one. The hire you keep putting off, the conversation you're avoiding, the investment you can't pull the trigger on, the thing that keeps showing up on your mental list week after week. Well, I created this series because I know you're not sure on decisions to make. You're drowning in them. And the weight of the unmade ones, it's heavier than you think. This is part 1 of a 3-part series on decision making. And today we're going to be digging into why you delay making decisions, what it's really costing you, and the real problem most business owners never see. In part 2, I'll give you a framework to fix it. And in part 3, we'll talk about how and when to trust your own gut. But it all starts here with the pattern you probably don't realize you're stuck in. I want you to think of a decision that you've been putting off. Not a task, not 5 decisions, a decision. Something that you need to choose, but haven't. Got one? Okay, good. If you don't, hit pause. And if you do, I want you to hold on to that. I want you to think of the first thing that popped up that you need to make a decision on in your business. Because here's what I know after working with business owners for over a decade. Delayed decisions are not because you're lazy or because you don't care. No, it is for a very different reason. And it probably falls into one of 4 categories, and I'm going to walk you through each of those 4 categories now. Most people have a default. It's a category that they return to over and over again, and so I'm sure you're going to be able to recognize your default category. But don't be mistaken, you will probably pick from a few categories, but you're definitely probably having a favorite. So let's see if you can spot yours. First up is fear-based delays. This is the what if I get it wrong category. And it has more flavors than you think. Fear of making the wrong choice. This is the obvious one. You're afraid of making the wrong call, so you make no call at all. You may have some internal chatter that sounds like, what if this backfires? What if I regret it? What if there's a better option I haven't found yet? You're so focused on what you might lose that you can't see what you might gain. How about fear of judgment? This one's sneaky. It's not just the decision. It's about what other people will think of you for making it. What will my team think? What will my clients say? What will my peers think? Will they think I'm crazy? You tell yourself you're considering all stakeholders, but really, are you afraid of looking stupid, incompetent, or reckless? How about fear of conflict? Sometimes the decision itself isn't as hard as what comes after the decision. And what comes after the decision is really what is scaring you. Perhaps you're thinking, if I decide this, I'll have to have that conversation. I'll have to deliver that bad news. Or maybe you'll have to disappoint someone. So you delay, not because you don't know what to do, but because you don't want to deal with the fallout or what happens next. Fear of exposure. This is the imposter syndrome trigger. You're thinking things like, what if this decision reveals that I don't actually know what I'm doing? Or what if I'm not qualified to make this call? You tell yourself you need more expertise, more experience, more certainty, but underneath that, you're afraid the decision will expose you in some way. And then there's loss aversion, fear of losing what you already have. You've built something, you've worked hard, and now there's a decision that could change things. Now, this is one that I deal with personally, and my brain loves to say things like, what if you lose it? What if you break it all? What if this decision changes everything and you can't fix it? You want guarantees before you move forward. And I want guarantees before I move forward. This is the one that I lean on. But here's the thing. Business doesn't hand out guarantees. And so I have had to personally reprogram my brain and find positive proof, and we'll talk about that in future episodes, to show myself that I have made many decisions that I thought would break something, and it didn't. Or if it did, I was certainly able to course correct. I am not immune to this, and I know what the fix is. And I'm going to be sharing with you what that fix is in the coming episodes in this series. I just want you to know that sometimes these thoughts, these behaviors and habits of thinking don't just go away. We're going to learn how to acknowledge them, how to see them, and how to choose different thoughts. So while I'm looking for, and you may be looking for guarantees, we got to know there are no guarantees. There's no guarantees in business. There's no guarantees in life. When we find ourselves in this category, we want to wait. We want to gather more opinions. And we often sit on making decisions. And we tell ourselves that we're being careful, responsible, strategic. But careful and stuck, those are two very different things. Next, category 2, thinking traps. This is the I just need more information category. And it's a lie you tell yourself over and over. Analysis paralysis. You keep researching, you keep weighing options, you keep asking people what they think. And perhaps right now, you're also now consulting with AI for more and more information. And I'll tell you, that is a black hole to go down because AI is just going to keep fueling that need or that desire for more and more information and get you in a place that you feel more and more stuck. When we experience analysis paralysis, we're going to have thoughts like, let me just look at one more article. Let me review one more, have one more opinion, ask one more person. And somehow you never arrive at the decision. You're not being thorough. You're stuck in a loop. You're stuck in a constant loop of seeking more and more information. Next, moving the goalpost. And this one can be a little bit brutal because you often don't actually see it happening until now, maybe because we're naming it, so I'm calling it out. But this one can definitely be another sneaky one. You tell yourself, I'll decide when I have X. Then you get to X and it's suddenly, well, when I get Y. Then you get Y and you don't make the decision. And then you move it again and then it's Z. And this looks like in real life, when I get this client, I'll make this decision. When I hit this revenue number, I'll make this decision. When the market shifts, I'll do this. We're consistently saying if this, then that, which is fine if it actually helps move through the decision and we follow through. But oftentimes, we are just moving the goalpost to delay making a decision. And that finish line keeps moving and moving, and you keep chasing it, and you never cross it. Next, perfectionism. You won't move on a decision until you found the perfect solution, the perfect hire, the perfect timing. And you're going to have thoughts like, it's not ready yet. It's not good enough yet. It's not quite right. It's not the right time. I know it when I see it. Now, your internal chatter may sound different, but I definitely know that many of you deal with perfectionism. And it's a hard thing to identify because we think we have to get it to this point or the situation needs to look a certain way. And again, we're looking for guarantees. We're looking at trying to reduce the risk. But how do we actually know what is perfect? Because the truth is, perfect doesn't exist. And waiting for it, that's not strategy. That's stalling. Next, comparison spiral. Instead of deciding, you research what everyone else is doing. Cue Instagram scroll. You're wondering what other business owners are doing regarding X, Y, and Z. You might be consulting your colleagues in the same industry. What are they doing? How are they solving the problem? What are the industry standards? You might listen to podcast after podcast after podcast episode, searching for what others are doing. And you call it research, but oftentimes it can turn to avoidance dressed up as due diligence. And I have one more thing to say about this. If you're my coaching client, you absolutely know this is true. I've shared this many, many times with you. But if you are working with a business coach that is giving standardized advice, it's often the wrong advice. And I can't even say that more plainly. Giving advice to make decisions or helping somebody move through making decisions strategically in their business is nuanced. It has more to do with context. It has so much to do with where that person is specifically in their business. And I say this because you need to know this when you're making decisions for yourself. When you see somebody else do X, Y, and Z, You're trying to compare apples to apples, and it's never the same. You have to take into account your own personal situation and those details. And lastly, what I'll say about this comparison spiral is that we're often trying to compare what other people are doing without actually pulling back the curtain and understanding if it's actually working for their business. Do they know if it's working? Sometimes they don't even know, and you certainly don't know by a conversation or scrolling Instagram. So be really, really careful about the comparison. And my advice is that you focus more on your specific situation in collecting information about how it applies to you uniquely than just blanketed advice. Next, the just one more loop. Okay. Now, I've alluded to this one a few times already, but this gets its own little subcategory. It's one more conversation, one more data point, one more week to think about it. And you might be having some internal thoughts or chatter like, I am almost ready, but not yet. I just need a little more time or a little more information. But a little more often never ends and puts you back in this loop where you're in this delayed decision limbo because you're not actually gathering information to decide. You're gathering information just to continue the delay of the inevitable of making the decision. And I want to remind you here, and I'll keep reminding you, that no decision is a decision. So this is definitely can be costing you when we get in this type of loop for sure, and we keep delaying the decision. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. Next, category number 3, calibration problems. This is a very sneaky category in general, and I went back and forth on how I was actually going to name this category when I was organizing my own thoughts and notes around what are all the ways in which I see business owners delay making decisions. And I did find this little trend, and what this means is that calibration in this scenario means matching your effort to what the decision actually deserves. So when calibration is off, everything feels heavy. And I do see this over and over with decision making in the business. And if I have to be honest with you, along with the I think I'm going to break something, which is where I land, this one is something that I used to have. And I worked with a business coach over 10 years ago. And I remember when he pointed this pattern out, I had been doing it for years and years. And I didn't see it. I didn't recognize it. I couldn't name it. I couldn't put my finger on it. And just him pointing it out was so incredibly helpful. And I hope it is as helpful to you if you need it. So again, when calibration is off, everything feels heavy because we treat small decisions just the same as we would treat big decisions. You're giving decisions that could have a price tag of $50 the same weight, time, attention, focus as something that could be costing you $50,000. You may spend 45 minutes comparing a project management tool, and then you're too exhausted to actually think about something bigger like hiring someone on your team. And you still need to make that decision, but you've worn yourself out on smaller decisions that just don't carry the same weight. You can agonize over which email subject line to use while there's a lingering pricing decision that sits untouched for weeks. You treat reversible decisions like they're permanent. Now, this is actually exactly what my coach had taught me. And what he had said to me was that I am treating everything like it is permanent. And he said, most decisions, there's very few decisions in life that are permanent. Most decisions are like walking through a door. And you can walk through the door and get to the other side and see what that decision and walking through that door is. And you can choose to walk back out the door, which means you can undo a decision. And that simple framing is the filter that I often check my own thoughts around. Is this the decision that I can undo? And just by giving myself that option and permission to see that decision through that lens, I'm like, well, then yes, let's do it. I mean, as easily as we do it, I can undo it, right? And maybe not as easily. Oftentimes there's work to be done to undo a decision. I'm making light of it a bit, but it feels a lot lighter than if I make this decision, I can't undo the decision. I actually use this exact thought pattern and a reframe when I made the decision about changing the podcast from productivity straight talk to small business straight talk. And I had thought about that decision and then tabled that decision multiple times. And we'll talk about what tabling a decision looks like. That's a great strategy that I'll share with you in this series. But what I'm talking about is that what actually allowed me to walk through the door was two things. One, I kept having the thought that, oh my gosh, I've created this incredible following, this incredible podcast. What if I break it? Not only what if I break the podcast, but what if I break the business, which I told you is the one I lean on. And the thing that also was my thought was like, I was making it such a heavy decision as if it was permanent. Of course, I'm going to change the name of the podcast. But until I gave myself permission to say, and as easy as you changed it, you can change it back if you want. Like that is totally an option on the table. And I remember that as soon as I let myself think that thought, I was like, oh, well, what I really want to do is change the name of the podcast. So let's go do that. And if I break it, and if I don't like it, and if I get feedback it's not working out, I get to undo that decision. I get to walk back through the door. This is not a permanent decision. So look, if you are acting like choosing something like your project management software is going to ruin your business, then I'm going to invite you to reframe that and understand that that is definitely not a permanent decision. But more importantly, it is just not that big of a decision compared to other decisions that you're likely trying to make or need to make in the business. Another example of this is hiring a contractor in your business. So it's for a special project or a special need, and you're hemming and you're hawing and you're just kind of in this delayed limbo, but you're literally treating this hire like a marriage, like it's permanent. When it's truly a trial period, you're going to know if it's not working out, and you can cancel the contract. You can cancel the contract with the contractor. Some wrong choices take 5 minutes to fix, and your brain is literally telling you that it's going to ruin everything and that maybe it's not even fixable and it feels permanent. So I really want you to understand the weight of the decision and calibrate appropriately for this. Because when we wear ourselves out thinking that all decisions are permanent and they all need to be equally heavy or equally important, decision fatigue sets in. So you've spent so much energy on the small stuff that by the time you get to the big decisions, you have nothing left. And you're avoiding the important decisions because they might feel hard. And you're avoiding them because you are already depleted and you're telling yourself that they're hard. We want to make sure that we really monitor what we're paying attention to, where we're putting our energy and our focus. So I have pointed this out to many, many clients over the years. It was a gift that was given to me by my coach. And when I do this for my clients, they're often surprised. They're surprised because the brain has been lying to them, as my brain has lied to me many times over the years. And it's been telling them that every decision deserves the same scrutiny, the same energy and attention and focus. And that's just simply not true. The fourth category, avoidance pattern. This is the if I don't decide, I can't fail. So you're just going to put your head in the sand. You're going to avoid that there's even a decision to be made. And often this boils down to a few things, but first we'll talk about fear of ownership. You delay because you don't want to be the one who has to make the call. And you might be thinking or have internal chatter of things like, if it goes wrong, I don't want to be blamed. I don't want this one to be on me. And I got to tell you that sometimes, again, waiting is a decision and there will be consequences for that waiting. And you are the business owner. You're the CEO. You avoiding making a decision doesn't actually make the decision go away. And you not wanting to take ownership doesn't change the fact that ultimately the buck stops with you. It is at your feet as the business owner to be making many different and sometimes hard decisions in the business. So I want you to hear again that not deciding is a decision. And the not deciding, you are the owner of that, whether you want to take ownership of making the decision or not. I hope that makes sense. So when we're in this mode, we're like fear of ownership, which is we don't want to take ownership, but that doesn't change the fact that in decision, you still own that. You're choosing to stay stuck and you're choosing to let circumstances decide for you. And you're still responsible for the outcome. Next, passive decision making. Sometimes you don't decide because letting the deadline pass is easier than making a choice. The opportunity expires. The candidate takes another job. The window closes. And you tell yourself it just wasn't meant to be. But really, you just didn't decide in time. That is what passive decision making looks like. And I just want you to be aware of that pattern to see if that is something that you are doing in your business and life. Honestly, these same patterns apply for our personal life, but we're talking in context of the business right now. The sunk cost trap. You can't let go of something because of how much you've already put into it. That can be resources like time, money, energy, reputation. So you keep going even when the evidence says stop. And your internal thoughts or chatter might sound like, well, I've already invested so much. I can't quit now. That is not forward-looking decision-making. That's a backward-looking one. You're making choices based on what you've spent, not what makes sense moving forward now. This is one that I often see again with my clients because they don't understand that the filter in which they're making or not making a decision is actually because it's biased on the fact that their brain's saying, well, that's not even an option to stop the thing or not do the thing or to make a different decision because I've already invested so much into it, time, money, energy, etc. And I can give my clients permission that just because you've made this investment doesn't mean it's right for your business moving forward. And this is a great one too to ask ourselves is like, Would you advise your friend or your colleague the same thing of like, yeah, just keep going. You know it's not good for you, your business. It's not serving you in the same way it did 5 years ago, but you've already invested, so just keep going. We would never give that advice, but that's often, sometimes even silently, the advice that we're giving ourselves when we go to make decisions. So just understanding that, you can catch yourself and be aware of that and analyze it and be more critical of that sometimes said and unsaid bias of sunken cost. Next is that there is the comfort of being in limbo. Now, I don't get that because I don't think that there is any comfort in being in limbo over a decision. That's me personally, but some people really feel this. And we don't talk about this a lot. So I do want to bring this up. Sometimes staying undecided feels safer than committing either way. And you're going to have thoughts or chatter in your mind that say, as long as I haven't decided, anything is possible, or all options are still open. And this is, again, another version of being completely stuck. Nothing's moving forward, and you're stuck in the illusion of possibility while your business becomes stagnant. So again, I see that, not everybody has all of these. And for me, I absolutely dread being in limbo on a decision. But I can see the other side. And I've seen this many times over a decade, coaching clients one-on-one, is that it just feels safer, and safer translates to comfort, being in limbo of a decision. So which one sounds like you? And again, you can have a combination of these. And my guess is you probably live in one more frequently than the others. So are you fear-based, delaying making decisions? The what if I get it wrong? Or perhaps category 2, which is thinking traps. I need more information before I can make a decision. Or the third one, calibration problems. Everything feels equally heavy. And fourth is the avoidance pattern. If I don't decide, I can't fail. And again, you may see yourself in more than one, but most people have a home base and a category that they keep returning to. But here's the good news. Once you start seeing the patterns, you can start to interrupt them. And I shared a little bit about how I have learned over the years to interrupt many of these patterns for myself, and how I help clients interrupt these patterns as well. But before we continue talking about how to interrupt these patterns, I first need you to understand what's at stake. Because knowing your pattern only matters if you can see what delaying a decision is costing you. Every decision you haven't made is costing you right now, today. You don't see it on a report. Nobody sends you an invoice for an indecision. But the price is real, and it's adding up in ways that you might not even realize. Let's jump into that. The first cost we're going to talk about today is the mental load. How many unmade decisions are you carrying right now? Decisions, things that you need to choose but haven't. Is it 3, 5? Maybe it's even more than you can count. And it might even be that you haven't even identified that there is a decision, you're just feeling the cost of it. Every single one of these unmade decisions is taking up space in your brain. You sit down to focus on work, and within 5 minutes, your mind has already circled back to that thing that you still haven't handled. And you try to be present at dinner, and there it is again, that nagging hum of something unresolved and pulling at you. Or perhaps it's in the shower when you're trying to just take this hot shower to relax and melt the day away. And then pops in your brain again. You're tired, not because you've done so much, although that might be true as well, but because you're carrying so much. Decisions you haven't made are heavier than decisions that you have. I really wanted to hit home on this because when we have this mental load drain, it shows up in how we get to show up in our business. And it also shows up in how we get to show up with our loved ones and with our team and with our clients. When we are weighed down with indecision, it is really, really hard to move forward in other areas of our business that we might not necessarily feel stuck in. But because we're stuck in another area, the weight and the mental load is just creating this stagnation. I want to dive into that a little bit more with the business cost. While you are still thinking about it, opportunities might be walking out the door. The team member who needs an answer from 3 weeks ago, they might have mentally checked out because an indecision is actually speaking incredibly loud to them. The client that you were going to follow up with on making that proposal, and you're not sure when to tell them you can start the project or work with them, and so you're in indecision, they might have moved on to another company, another business, because that indecision, again, was speaking louder of, oh, they must not have time for me, or some other variation of that. And the truth is you were just in indecision of what date do I say we can start inside that proposal? How about that contractor you wanted to hire to help with your website? You might have been like, oh my gosh, I thought they were great, but I'm collecting more information and I'm not sure and I can't pull the trigger. And for all the reasons we just talked about, and you go to say yes, and they already took on another job and they're at capacity and they can no longer work with you on your project. I have watched business owners delay a hiring decision week over week, and they were convinced that they needed to find other candidates and that they needed just a little more time to make the decision. And it turns out that candidate has already accepted another position. I have personally coached a few of my clients into helping them make a decision around a candidate, because sometimes we think we need to make things more difficult than they are. The absolute best candidate shows up right at the front end of hiring, and we can't accept that we can let it be easy. Let it be simple. Let what just fell in your lap be the answer. And instead, we delay making a decision thinking we need to collect more information and consult more people. And, how could it be that easy? And the cost is that you lose the ideal candidate, you start over on doing the hiring process and looking for candidates, because now you have to find someone that is as good as or better than that candidate you missed, and all while burning yourself out doing so much in your business that you could have handed off. And because you're doing other tasks that you shouldn't be doing, you're probably missing out on revenue because you couldn't say yes to additional clients because you didn't have the capacity. Look, costs show up in so many ways. You could be paying a rush fee because you didn't make a decision, and then once you did, you had to pay to hit that same deadline because you drug your feet. These are just a few of the actual costs in your business, but the math is never neutral. Waiting has a price, and you're paying for it whether you see a bill or not, whether it's obvious and you had to pay the rush fee or you missed that ideal client. Honestly, that cost is having rippling effects that you may not even see. So delaying decision is a decision, and there is a cost to that, and it's usually an unintended cost. I want to shift to the personal cost. I don't think we talk enough about this one. We can talk about how it impacts the business. We can talk about what we just did with the mental load. But think about it. It's 2 a.m. and you're lying in your bed replaying the same decision for the 10th time, or it's a scenario in which a decision needs to be made. And you're thinking, should I do it? Should I not? What if I'm wrong? What if I regret it? What is the cost? What is the pain? And you're in the same loop over and over. And I guarantee that does not feel good. I guarantee that that is stressful. I guarantee that when you are not sleeping, you are not showing up your best the next day at work or with your loved ones. You are not able to focus as well. You are probably, your mood is affected because of lack of sleep and because of stress that never allows us to show up our best. And the real cost, the bigger cost, is that every time you delay, you're sending yourself a message that you do not trust yourself, that you do not trust yourself to handle this. Do that enough times and you start believing it. Your confidence to make decisions erodes. Your self-trust cracks. And the next decision feels even harder. Not because it's bigger, not because it has a bigger weight or impact, but because now you're questioning whether you're even capable of making good decisions. One of the things that I noticed about myself is that I do not identify as someone that procrastinates on making decisions. And because I don't actually have that identity, when I do delay making a decision, I understand that it's for a very real reason. And that is gold. So that is a gift. And it's a gift because it lets me ask different questions to get different answers and to ultimately decide if a decision actually needs to be made. If it does, when does it need to be made? And is this the right timing? When we erode our own confidence around decision making and making decisions timely, we do not actually hear our gut. We don't know that the reason that we're not making a decision is actually a clue and an answer. We're going to get more into that in the third part of this series, but I think right now it's really important for me to point that out. I have example after example for myself, for clients, where if you trust yourself and you're not making a decision, that is a gift. And if you consistently don't make decisions, you then own the identity that you procrastinate with decisions and you can't hear when your gut is talking to you. That is a cost to consistently delaying making decisions. So today we covered two things: why you delay making decisions. It could be fear, thinking traps, calibration problems, and just general avoidance. 4 categories, and most people have a default one that they return to over and over again. And then number 2 is, what is delaying decision-making costing you? The mental load that follows you everywhere, the business opportunities walking out the door, the personal toll that shows up at 2 a.m. and sits with you at the dinner table. And all of this indecision creates a compound effect of stress, lack of focus, lack of being able to move your business forward. So that's why this series is so important for business owners. I hope you've identified your own patterns as you listen to today's episode. And I hope that maybe one category, or maybe it was perhaps a mix of categories that stuck out to you that you can now identify. You can put your finger on why you tend to delay making decisions. Now you can see it. And that is definitely the first step. In part 2, I'm going to be giving you the tools to fix what we uncovered today. Specific techniques for fear, perfectionism, avoidance, whatever your pattern is, there's a way through it. Plus, I have a free resource that you'll be able to download to help you move through decision making faster and with less stress in your business. But for now, I just want you to notice the patterns that show up for you. Don't try to fix them. We'll come back at this next week. Awareness comes first. I have loved having you listen to this episode of the Small Business Straight Talk podcast. And I sure hope you found our conversation about delayed decision making to be incredibly valuable. But I need to be straight with you. No change, no change. Without taking action, nothing will change for you or your business. So, just to wrap up today, all you have to do this week is notice. I want you to notice the types of decisions you delay making. I want you to notice the patterns in why you may be delaying making decisions. I want you to figure out what category those might fall in. Is it fear, the thinking trap, calibration, or avoidance? Write it down if you can, just to start seeing your default pattern. That's going to really help you with part 2 of this series when I dive into some solutions that you can utilize to get you out of the trap of delaying decisions and being stuck in each of these categories. If you are tired of carrying the weight of unmade decisions, if you're ready to stop the cycle of overthinking, second guessing, and staying stuck, I would love to talk to you. Let's see if we're a fit to partner together to help you get unstuck, reduce stress, and determine a clear path to increased profits. Head on over to amberdelagarza.com/coaching to learn more about my coaching and to schedule a discovery call today. If you've enjoyed today's episode, be sure to share it with a fellow business owner who you think would find it valuable. And if you're new here, please hit subscribe so you don't miss another episode and you are notified about part 2 of this series. So that's my straight talk for today. Until next time, have a productive week.